In a world where Twitter leads the headlines and the 24-hour news cycle forces people to choose sides, we're here to help you cut through the noise and discover that the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Hosted by entrepreneur, author, public speaker, and regular media contributor Seth Denson. Subscribe, share, rank, and review. Welcome to Somewhere in the Middle on the Real News Communication Network.
Hold the presses. The debates are over. There is no reason to continue talking about the elections. You know why?
Why is that?
Because Taylor Swift has told us how we need to vote.
Oh.
No reason to even go into it. We don't even need to hear another debate, not another anything. We are done because T Swift... Hashtag T-Swift Nation out there listening to Somewhere in the Middle. We all know our marching orders. Now let's go.
Well, hit the lights. Come on.
I know, right? Good show.
Hang it up.
Good show. We're done.
Get that music back up. Let's just punch out now.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it. No reason to have anything. I mean, listen, there's so much going on in the world today, but you know what? We don't need to talk about it because let's just take our cues from T-Swift. Right? We're done.
Coming in hot today, Seth. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
You know what? We postponed. So for those of you who normally listen to the show on Monday, thanks for sticking with us and looking out for us on a Thursday here. We little extra because Monday we decided we would celebrate. If we can, if we're allowed to, we'll celebrate Columbus Day. We'll get into that too because oh my gosh. I thought last week I was about as hot as I would ever be based on the Kavanaugh hearings. But man, then this week comes around, and if you're in the news like we are, if you host a show, there is no shortage of things to talk about. But there is plenty to get mad about, right?
Go ahead.
No, I feel like I always joked about the people that wore the foil caps over their heads.
It's looking pretty good now, isn't it?
Now I'm thinking maybe I need to invest in that.
You know, in a way, hear me out. There was the only thing that was refreshing about the Kavanaugh hearing was that for like a week and change, it felt like we were all talking about just one monster of a mess, you know? And now that that's behind us, it's right back to, hey, there's 18 things to be angry about and everybody's got something to say.
That's exactly right. I mean, it was one of those things where I was the same way. I was like, yo, thank God this thing is over. And I'd never thought I would go, can we bring the hearings back? And again, I'm not. If you want to know my real take on the whole Taylor Swift and any celebrity endorsement for that reason, I don't want to. It's if you're a Taylor Swift fan, it's in your playlist. I know, Andrew, it's probably in yours,
absolutely.
Right? She's gotten she's gotten us through a lot of emotional things as a country. Why? But stick around. So where I land on this, we'll talk about this in more detail. But maybe let's come back to that. I need to take a break because my blood pressure is already up. I can sense it already.
All right.
So we'll come back. But in the meantime, let's talk about our friends in Columbus, Ohio. Are they going to change the name of their town?
Not sure, but give it a little longer. That might come up.
All right, hold on. In the age of crazy things happening in politics, is that actually a thing? Is that really a?
I'm about to talk about it. I think it is. I think in our so screwed up world of political correctness. If you follow the news this week, the town of Columbus, Ohio, chose not to celebrate Columbus Day because they thought it might be offensive to Native Americans.
Yes, so we went ahead and skipped a federal holiday, which I'm actually not sure how that works on a paper level, because federal employees worked on a federal holiday. I'm not sure that's...
I liked how, like, in the days that followed, they tried to walk that back.
Yeah.
And said, we couldn't afford to take the day off.
So you paid people when you didn't have money?
Yeah, let me get this straight, because doesn't the federal government go on like total furlough, everybody's out when we run into a budget shortfall?
Traditionally, yeah, you take unpaid time off.
That's right. So we couldn't afford to have unpaid time off or even whatever. We could afford Columbus Day. We are Columbus, Ohio, but we now won't celebrate Christopher Columbus. And let's be real, Google did the same thing.
Absolutely.
What was it listed as on your calendar?
On Gmail, it was Indigenous Peoples Day. So,
Wait, really?
Yeah, so Gmail puts all the holidays at the top of your days. And if
Yeah.
you looked on Monday, it said Indigenous Peoples Day.
Hold on, I use Google Calendar. I'm gonna go looking at this. You guys do your thing. Let me let me look at this.
Because I remember for a while there was this push to make it Explorers Day. And I'm like, okay. But now it's Indigenous Peoples Day. And they just quietly did it. No fanfare. Just whoop.
I come on. I mean, listen. Guys, I just don't know how to take this anymore. So the guy that discovered America might not have treated the indigenous people of Hispaniola well. Do we have proof? Was anybody there?
Not that's still
I mean, I'm not.
living.
Listen, if he was a total, you know what, then that's one thing. But I mean,
This goes back to behavior. We're talking the 15th century here. How did the common person act towards other people? Like, how did one race treat another race?
well, I heard this week that maybe one of the big things that he did was that his sailors spread smallpox. So now we're bad people because when
Right.
we explore new lands, we didn't realize in the 15th century that we might bring with us some diseases.
Right. This isn't biological warfare. They weren't going over there with canisters of smallpox. Like, we can't wait to unleash this on the native population and take this land for our own. They didn't know. They had blankets and boats, for God's sake. They didn't know anything.
Yeah.
I fear for our children. Oh my gosh, I'm really struggling today because I saw this story and I read it and I'm like, this is a joke. This is really a joke. Columbus, Ohio is not. I mean, we're not talking about San Francisco or someplace that may be far left of center on something. This is Columbus, Ohio.
Bit of a red state.
I mean, and now they're saying, you know what? Christopher Columbus may not have been a good guy.
Have there been conversations about renaming the capital of our Lone Star State, Austin? I'm sure somebody somewhere, right, is upset.
what? Yeah.
Oh, who knows? I'm sure somebody can find something Stephen F. Austin did, and they're like, well, hey, that's enough of that.
Hey, Jim Bowie was a slave owner. And
So was
half
Jefferson
of the
and-
elementary schools in Texas are named after Jim Bowie. I believe at one point so was William Barrett Travis. Or William Barrett, yeah.
Well, shoot, George Washington owned slaves, and people loved him.
Most of the founding fathers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so we've got all this stuff going on, and I'm not. There is a real conversation about monuments in the South and the Confederate States, and should we still maybe be promoting Confederate ideals, and that's a totally another topic for a totally another show, and I may or may not have some hot sports opinions on that one.
Ooh.
But when it comes to things like Christopher Columbus, and I mean, come on, what is the argument that we're making now? Because, okay, I don't want to have an evolution conversation here. We're not doing that on this show. But depending on which side of the aisle you fall in the evolution argument, the Earth is either millions of years old or billions of years old, or it is about 4,000 or 5,000 years old, right?
Okay.
Can we all agree that both parties fall on one side of that spectrum?
Sure.
Okay. So regardless of which side you fall on, recorded history,
Couple thousand.
there you go.
Yeah.
Few thousand, a little
yeah.
bit more than that, right? So, and we are now in, from a date perspective, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Slavery throughout the world and mistreatment of civilizations throughout the world was going on all the way up till about 150 years ago.
I mean, it's still going on, but it was acceptable.
That's right.
Up until
And maybe
150
200 years ago in some parts of the world, we can have that historical conversation and all of that. But where I'm going with this is, are we supposed to say that all historical figures prior to the Emancipation Proclamation, okay, and that's one issue. Slavery is one issue. And by the way, I'm opposed emphatically to that.
I'm a little
Those of
disappointed
you-
we actually have to put that disclaimer
Those
out
of you
here.
that are
Yeah,
about to
roll that-
write in
roll that
here,
along the bottom.
it is wrong. It was always wrong. but it was reality. And because it was reality culturally, historically, that doesn't mean that we demonize every person out there in history because they lived in a time in which it was acceptable. Okay? So the fact that, and we're getting away from the barn here, let's bring this back in because we can have this conversation in another episode and we will bring special guests in to have that conversation. But for us not to celebrate Columbus Day because Christopher Columbus, I'm going to get written in. Somebody's going to have somebody who accused Christopher Columbus of mistreatment, allegedly, at some point, right?
It's like you can hear the keys typing.
I know, right? But
okay, well, hold on. Let's frame
Zach,
this. Yeah.
me,
Okay,
Zach.
hold on. Let's talk about this for a second because I like to grandstand here. My father's a history teacher, so and while I don't know everything, context. For God's sake, context is important. And people forget. They look as far as their phone screen and they think, well, it's 2018. Why don't people get it? It was 1492, man. They were still doing public executions till the late 1800s. All right? That was a thing. This was hundreds of years before they even stopped doing that. People would go out and cheer and see somebody get hanged, and that was an exciting event in town. Like, that was a thing. So it's a different time. It was a different place. People were different. Ideals were different. Ideologies were different. And rhetoric was different.
that's right.
And it's challenging to understand that now, but I think it's important to blood alone. Okay, this is going to sound bad. This is where I get a comment. Blood alone moves the wheels of history. I believe that. I really do. And Christopher Columbus, maybe at the end of the day, some things shake out, and the guy wasn't the knight in shining armor that we all maybe imagine him to be. But the fact is, he's the guy that planted the flag. He's the guy that got it. It's his name in the history books. He's the one we remember. So if you name a town after him, maybe you should consider why people name that town, right? Does that make sense at all?
It makes perfect sense. And I think that's where I'm going with this. Again, and I don't want this to amass the entire conversation of the day because I do want to get to the midterms and what's going on there. But, I was literally, my head was exploding. And I just want to tell America, wake up. Wake up. Listen to what we have become here, and that we want to be so politically correct, not to offend anybody, that we won't celebrate a federal holiday of the man that if he had not discovered the world, maybe we all thought the world might still be flat. Right?
Sure.
Thoughts? You're chomping at the bit over there, I can tell.
No, I completely agree with you, and this is, again, bad liberal. That we can go ahead and celebrate one portion of his life. He did the Americas a great service. He landed somewhere down in Haiti. He discovered land over in this area, and that led to the colonization. I know there were already indigenous people here, but steps rolled to where we are now. He played a role in that. Mm-hmm. Can we acknowledge that and leave the town named after him and still be like, yeah, maybe slavery was bad. It's very bad. But that was the time, take it in context, and move forward.
Right.
Because I'm sure, find me a person who does not have a skeleton in their closet. One. You're never going to.
And we'll put them on the Supreme Court.
Hey-oh!
Zing!
We were all waiting for it, right?
I was like, I don't want to pivot to Kavanaugh. There we go.
I know, right?
Done.
That's it. Let's move off from this. So, town of Columbus. If any of my friends in Columbus are listening to this, come on. Let's wake up. You're better than this. You are. Come on, wake up. Let's move on from this. Surely there are other things in the world to get worked up about. Right?
Mm-hmm. Personally, I'll take any opportunity for a holiday. Take the day off work? Yeah, totally. I'm in. Yeah, I'm not going to fight you.
I do wonder how many Americans actually know that Columbus Day is about Christopher Columbus,
Oh,
sadly.
don't say that.
No. I'm afraid of those polls. I am so afraid of those polls.
Don't open that box.
That man on the street thing, right? So let's talk a little midterms. We're getting nearer, and I think we'll probably talk a little midterms for the next few weeks until we get to the midterms. But I opened up the show with my big headline over the weekend.
Yes.
That's because this past Monday was the last day to register to vote in several Midwest states, Texas and Tennessee included.
So we were talking about this, Andrew, yesterday, you and I were, about all of the protesters, all of the noise, and everybody that's registering to vote.
Yep.
Does registering to vote mean you vote?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And I can prove it mathematically.
How many registered voters don't actually show up?
So the problem was, in the generals, we had just over 50% of people, of Americans that were eligible to vote, voted. Midterms historically have in the high 30s to low 40s percentage. And for Taylor Swift's demographic, specifically, we're talking millennials. So I'm talking 18 to 29 or early 30s, if I have to throw myself in that category. Millennials, you're talking, they had something like a 17% turnout in the general. It was a super low number, which means it's going to be even, excuse me, I've said that wrong, it was about a 19% turnout in the general, which as a midterm, you can predict it's going to be a few points lower. So you're talking fine, if 15% of the 7,000 that just registered show up, that's still virtually nothing. So
yeah, so prove me wrong here, millennials. You guys are quick about grabbing posters and marching on the streets and wanting to get on the 5 o'clock news or shut down highways that I'm trying to drive on. Thank you for that, by the way. I'll never let that one go.
No, as a Bay resident, no.
But you don't actually show up when it's time to go into the ballot box.
And it takes 45 minutes.
If that.
It's 15 minutes to drive there.
If you have early voting, you can actually probably do it less than that, right?
Or mail it in.
I've heard you can mail it in. Yeah, how about that?
I just, and so
I'll stomp on people on this one, yeah.
Oh, no.
It's interesting because I've been watching and reading the news patterns, and they're talking about how many more people are registering to vote this year. And you know what? Great. And listen, history will prove that the more people that show up to vote, the worse it is for Republicans.
Absolutely.
But registering isn't showing up.
Correct.
And I'm not calling out people, but I'm calling you out.
Yeah, I will. Show up.
Don't forget to register to vote. Well, that's great. Yes, you have to take step 1 before you take step 2, which is actually vote. But so many people don't do the 2-step. They do a 1-step. They stop. Right?
I had a friend discover that who had registered to vote when he was 18, but he never signed up for selective service. That's also part of that, by the way, gentlemen. Listen.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's like, oh yeah, I never did that. Oops. Anyways.
So what are we thinking? We think we're gonna have a blue wave, red wave? What do you think, guys?
Oh God! All right. Well, can I jump in real quick?
Please.
Always.
I'm gonna echo the same thing. I've heard on every news chyron ever since 2016. After 2016, I'm not in the prediction game anymore, Seth. It's gonna come down to voter turnout. That's what's gonna matter at the end of the day. And that's all I got. I mean, who knows?
It might be sunny
right?
or rain outside. Gee, thanks, Zach.
I think I know, right? That's no help at all. I think, not to get too far in the weeds, as far as polls are concerned, I think in Texas, Mr. Cruz still has it, right? That's where we're at, I think. And Andy, you want to?
But Beto has gone to 254 counties.
You know,
just in case anybody had forgotten that.
Stop telling me.
Interesting point here. Yeah, I heard that from a couple of conservative friends. I said, well, I want to know what his message about, but that's all I hear. And I was like,
yeah.
I guess that's true. Yeah, I suppose.
I think I came out a few weeks ago, or not a few weeks ago, probably a month ago. We did a show. I think it was when we had Alan Weaver on. Coach Weaver, who's a high school coach of mine, teaches government here in Texas, is a high school teacher. And we were talking about that, and I said, listen, I want to be an objective voter. I'm going to listen to all sides of the argument and make my determination. However, as of right now, I'm kind of liking what I'm hearing from Beto as far as his approach, and I think he's done himself some favors in his original approach to things. But then it did almost become broken record-y in that it just became a talking point. Well, we've gone to 254 counties. Did you know we've gone to 254 counties? Hey, we went to 254 counties. So, I get that you went to 254 counties. Now, he did come out. Let me finish this last part. He did come out, I thought, about 3 weeks ago with a new ad. And to his credit, he's not taking PAC money, although I did see a PAC today against Ted Cruz. So while he's not taking the PAC money, the PAC is still out there doing its thing.
Is that the Richard Linklater
I think that's
ad
it.
you're talking about? Yeah.
And so, but Beto came out, and I thought his political team did a phenomenal job of a new ad where he came out, and it's just him talking into a microphone about how, hey, let's not be Democrats, let's not be Republicans, let's not be defined by those things that are negative, let's be defined by what we can accomplish. I thought it was very Kennedy-esque. Not what you can do, right, or what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And there's a brighter side here, and we could be a shining city on a hill. That was very much that way. And I thought it was a good ad. I thought he did a great job of delivering the message. Here's the problem. When you just play that ad over and over and over and over and over, now what 3 weeks ago I thought was a good ad and a good message, I'm like, oh my God, I'm over it. I'm over it.
Yeah.
And I think you do yourself a disservice, don't you, when you just kind of take the same message and just wash, rinse, and you don't even wash it and rinse it. You're just repeating it.
Right. There's a couple things here. Andrew, you mind if I jump in? I can tell you're kind of
no.
All right. There's a couple things here that I think. One, I think Beto O'Rourke's presentation, the way he's reached people, he's pushed everything onto the internet, which for a younger voting audience, which seems to be kind of what he's going for, is smart because that's where they're at. They're not in magazines. They're not on television. They're on the internet. They're on their phones. They're on Facebook. And I get that. That's where he seems to be pushing everything. But the problem with that is you have to consider how people consume Facebook content. And the way they do it is they scroll by, they look at a video for 7 seconds, and they keep scrolling. And if every one of your videos seems to start with a line that resembles when we were in 254 counties, when I visited 254 counties very quickly, all people are getting or all you're saying is that. And then they keep scrolling. And it just seems to be this repetition and it doesn't go anywhere. That's a problem for his campaign. I like the approach, but it's heavy-handed, I guess. I don't know what I'm trying to say here.
What I was going to say is by kind of steering clear of the traditional political route, he doesn't have the traditional political team that a lot of other politicians do. I think it's what led him to be so sincere in this forward portion of the race. But now he doesn't have that he doesn't have an experienced professional next to him saying, all right, pump the brakes. So that's kind of my thought on that.
Right, a coordination issue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think it's a multitude of messaging issue. It's I get that there need to be talking points and there's things you stay on message, right? That's one thing we talked about with the Trump campaign. They couldn't seem to stay on message with anything. The message changed every day based on what Trump had for breakfast or who was last in President Trump's ear. So that's a challenge. But when you also run into another challenge when you almost hone the message too much and just repeat it, because we are not who we were as a society 50 years ago. We are a move at the speed of light society, and you have to continuously feed me something new or I will move on and you will just become an afterthought. And I think where Beto O'Rourke is running a challenge today is that he isn't expanding his message, and those that found him so exciting at the beginning might, by the time the election comes around, kind of have moved on.
A little stale.
And to your point, Zach, if he's targeting that demographic that goes online and gets their information, while that might be effective online or likes or followers on Twitter, historically they don't show up on election day.
Right. This is the penultimate problem with Beto O'Rourke's approach. His primary target audience is non-voters. And the one thing that connects non-voters is that they don't vote.
Right.
So if that's who you're trying to get in a voting booth, statistically, you're fighting a losing battle. Like, it's a problem. And I'm not saying you should be maybe converting voters. I don't know if that's the best way to go, but like, you're really swinging for the fences on this one because you're going for a group of people that don't vote. Since
the election of President Trump, I have met one family who admitted to me that they didn't vote. That's it. One group of people. I was like, why didn't you vote? They're like, we had a 3-month-old and we were tired. I'm like, that's totally valid. I get it. Thank you.
That a reason?
That's a good reason.
Sure.
So where's the other half of you? Because I'm yet to meet someone who hasn't had an opinion on the presidency yet.
Right.
It's everyone's...
There are 4 demographics of people that show up. Mm-hmm. The far left, and when I say far left, I'm talking far left. The far right, old people.
They show up. They do.
Exclusive
They're
groups?
not getting their information online, I can tell you that.
Yeah. No, you're right.
And those in the middle that are interested.
Yeah.
And now, those in the middle can lean left or they can lean right, but they are more of your, what we'll call average Americans. And these average Americans will show up, but they want to hear from you how you are going to impact their lives and their country. And they want to hear a message they feel resonates. And I think that, and I know that for our listeners that are listening from other parts of the country, I know we're talking Texas politics, but this is a national race now, right? Because the pendulum of the U.S. Senate swings potentially in Texas today.
Right.
And so don't believe me. Look at where the money's coming in from. It's coming in from everywhere.
Yeah.
More money's probably being raised from outside of Texas than in Texas right now for this race.
Yeah.
And now on both sides, now that it's within the opportunity for the Democrats to take the seat. So this is a national issue, but where Beto has made a misstep in my calculation, I could be proved wrong here, is two things. One, he was appealing to that middle ground, me, a traditionally conservative voter who wants to hear all opinions, who is frustrated by some things that Ted Cruz has not accomplished in the Senate, and some approaches that he's taken on some things. I was willing and able and ready to potentially cast my ballot a different direction than maybe I historically had. And he's lost me. And I'll tell you why he's lost me. He's lost me because, A, his message now is stagnated, in my opinion. And now, my biggest fear as an independent thinker who watched these Kavanaugh hearings play out, I'm going, who's not in the pocket of the far left or the far right? Now, again, I'm going to get a message here saying, so you're saying that Ted Cruz isn't in the pocket of the far right. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that he's not. But I'm saying that the devil I know beats the devil I don't.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in today's world. And with Beto now going on some fairly liberal talk shows, and now he's touting things like healthcare for all and he's talking things that I don't necessarily am as far right as others, but I'm middle ground, and he's now starting to go far left. And that's concerning, and I think that may be a challenge for him as we get nearer and nearer to election time.
It's tough, following, of course, 2016. Looking at kind of polling numbers for the president and favorability, that there seems to be a consistent base, as it were, right, that does not dislike Donald Trump. He's got that infamous quote. He said, I could walk out on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and people would still vote for me.
He's probably
they
right.
would.
Honestly, right, and that's the thing, is that he's probably right, and that base is incredibly valuable. So while it's real great to market to I think the unfortunately small percentage of voters who, like you said, like to think in between the lines and say, okay, well, wait, who exactly are you going for here? Ultimately, if you got to rally a group, you want to rally the extreme, right? Am I wrong?
No, because that's who's going to show up.
Right.
That is, but is the extreme more than the middle? And I don't know the answer to that. I like to think that the extreme is not more than the middle. I hope for our country that the extreme is not more than the middle, because if that's the case, then there's no reason for debate anymore. It's just who can amass the most turnout, and then whatever it says, it's mob rule at that point. And so I'm hopeful that more people are like what I think our show is about, and you guys and those that we've had on the show, which is they want to be middle of the road thinkers. They want to hear all sides and make a determination. And by the way, that doesn't make me any less of a good American than somebody who is far right or far left. Matter of fact, that makes me an open-minded American who wants to hear all sides and make a decision based on what I think is in the best interest of our country. And isn't that what we should hope for from everybody? If that isn't what we would hope for, then why protest?
Yeah.
Why hold up your sign? Why get the billboard? Why scream from the microphone? Why tweet at me who I need to vote for, who you would encourage me to vote for? If my mind's already made up, don't you want me to be open-minded and listen to all sides of the story and make a determination?
I think it was Penn Jillette who told me, or said into his microphone, I demand to be convinced. Change my mind. I want you to change my mind. Tell me something outlandish. That's great. Now convince me. But this whole, nope, I'm a so-and-so and you're never going to change that. That's stupid. That is.
It's naive.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
I'm principled.
It's it's so not what we should be about as a country. It's so not what's going to accomplish anything. And so, that's the big argument right now, is that now the pendulum swings left or it swings right based on who's in power, and now the Supreme Court is part of that, and we've politicized that. And you know what? They're right. We have. The Supreme Court is politicized, and it's a shame that it is. It shouldn't be. But you know what? Why have the halls of Congress? Why have the Senate floor? Why have open debate if we aren't willing to debate? And I think, again, and I'm going to get kind of scowled at for this, where it all started going downhill was when we started televising things.
Mm-hmm.
And I get, we want Americans to be informed. We want open discussion. But no longer could a politician listen. No longer could they maybe think differently, because now that decision, that change of mind, they're going to be a waffler, they're going to be a flip-flopper, or, oh, you know what, on that one issue over there, they didn't side with the far extreme. And so in the primary, they're going to lose. Because that principled person who is easy to step up and say, hey, I wouldn't have listened. That should be the ad now, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I promise I'll go to Washington and not listen to anybody.
That might work.
Yeah, watch out.
That's what so much of the country wants, right? Or at least that's what we won't come out and say that's what we want. But that's what we want. We want somebody to say, no matter what happens, I will go to Washington and not listen objectively to anybody. I will vote the way that I have been told to vote already by the fact that I have been elected by you. And you can count on me not to listen. Denson 2022.
You heard it here first, folks.
Come on, but that's what we're asking for now. And so again, I'm gonna wrap this back together. I think that's where, Beto originally came out and said, hey, I'm not going to be a far Republican. I'm not going to be a far Democrat. I'm going to be for the people of Texas. But yet it sure sounds like all the talking points I'm hearing out of him lately are what I hear from the far left. Come out on. I wanted somebody to ask him, what's your take on this Kavanaugh thing? Due process.
I think he's been asked.
He's
feel
probably,
like I saw.
Maybe he has, and maybe I haven't. I didn't necessarily hear it.
His not to, if you don't mind me.
No, go ahead.
I think his opinion was, I watched a thing from Showtime. They've been doing a series, of course. Everybody's getting political.
Is that the circus?
Yeah. That
okay.
one actually.
Yeah.
I saw a YouTube video yesterday. I don't know anything about it, but yeah. They asked him what he thought, and he said essentially based on. He saw disqualification in partisanship. That was his thing. He said Brett Kavanaugh appears to be partisan. That is why I would not vote for him. He said it's not a matter of what happened, what didn't happen. It's that you're supposed to go to the Supreme Court and not lean either way, but people do. I don't know, but that seemed to be what I got out of it. It was a pretty seemingly safe answer.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know
answer.
what? It's a good answer. It's the best answer they probably could have given.
Yeah.
And here would be my response to that, and that's fine for Beto O'Rourke. But how was everybody on the Senate floor that the day that Kavanaugh was announced to be the nominee not being partisan by saying they were going to, we all want to pivot to now his testimony and say, well, he didn't come across as partisan in his testimony. Yeah, but you already made up your mind ahead of time.
Again, look at the second
You
line.
were being partisan.
Yeah.
Second line into that, and they start screaming.
That's right.
Like, yeah, you're done.
And again, this isn't just about Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz, but this is about them all. I was listening to the conversation. I was listening to podcast this morning from the New York Times, and they do a decent job of kind of doing some updated briefings. And they were taking on the North Dakota Senate race between Heidi Heitkamp, who is the incumbent Democratic senator, and I've forgotten his name for the moment, but. Anyway, he is, I think, the Attorney General, and he's leading in the polls by 12 or 15 points. And now that Heidi Heitkamp voted against Kavanaugh, that actually shot him up in the polls because so many people looked at that and said, wait a minute. And North Dakota went widely for Trump, and it is a very red state now. But they were talking back and forth, and she was trying not to focus on national issues and only focus on local issues like tariffs and how it's impacting farmers. But now she's been thrust into that, and she had to toe the party line. And while she may have lost the race anyway, she's all but going to lose the race, guaranteed now. And so I think this is where we've come, is that, again, I want a candidate that's going to be open-minded, and I want them to convince me of that. I would take somebody that's open-minded over somebody who might just always lean the way that I would lean in a situation, because I might be wrong sometimes. I might need to hear all sides of the argument sometimes. But if I am questioning where I need to vote, I can always turn to T-Swift.
What a segue.
Right? So back to this.
Take note.
Where are we at on this? I mean, listen, I think it's almost a rule now. If you become a celebrity, a singer, a songwriter, or even a football player, you're required to take a political position on something. Why?
Because they finally have the mic and the camera, and they feel a need to do something about it.
Can I, real quick?
Please.
Oh.
All right. Here's what I think. All right, hear me out. I think if you're, and I'm not, obviously, not a celebrity, despite my appearance on this show.
You're going to get there, Zach.
I think someday it's true. I think celebrities get where they're at because they have to be the most honest version of themselves. I think if you're going to be a celebrity in America, you have to be you, first and foremost. If you're an actor, obviously you're acting a role, but you have to be comfortable in your own skin, right? You have to be yourself. When Taylor Swift sits down to write a song, she doesn't have somebody else write it for her. She writes how she feels. She pours her heart out on the page, and it comes out in the music. You express yourself and your opinion and what you do, and you're successful for it. I do think that runs into a problem in politics because everybody likes to talk about how they feel about politics. So when a celebrity does it, you run into an issue.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? And I think that, again, it's well within their right to do it. But don't be mad when I turn you off now. and again, I'm not coming against what Taylor Swift is fine if she feels like that the Democratic candidates in the state of Tennessee that she wants to endorse, that's fine. But it's almost like they run in groups and it become. Anybody watch the American Music Awards the other night? I've gotten to the point where I almost don't even want to watch these shows anymore. Because it just becomes an opportunity to hear about what political opinions one side has. And I will tell you, it is almost always one side in Hollywood or in music. I made this statement, I think I said one of the first shows, that I have historically never, voted conservative because I'm neither rich enough nor poor enough to vote liberal. And I mean that to say I don't depend on the government, nor do I have so much money where I'm willing to give it all away in taxes. Historically, my conservative leanings have been from a fiscal perspective based on the fact that I work hard. My family's always worked hard. I didn't come from money. We worked hard for what we made. We still do today. And as such, I want to make sure that the government falls in line and tries to run things more fiscally conservative as I have to run my household and tries to take a little less of what I got. I don't want them making these decisions for me. I want to make these decisions for myself. And so that's historically why I voted that way. But people in Hollywood that are making millions and millions of dollars on CDs, I just aged myself, digital downloads, right? iTunes. They have the money to say, well, I'm so happy to willing to, let Uncle Sam take what he needs, right? Or those that depend on the system. And so, the sad part is we're getting further and further away from the middle and things. And interestingly enough, as you look back historically, I mean, Ronald Reagan's a perfect example. He was a celebrity actor who started speaking out politically, became a president. Donald Trump was a reality show host. Now, listen, Donald Trump was a very wealthy real estate investor and developer long before that. But that's where he kind of got his notoriety, right? Was his reality shows and stuff like that. But I want sometimes celebrities to just be a celebrity and do your music, play in your movie. Give me the opportunity to escape just for 1 minute or two by listening to your music or watching you in a movie and not think about politics and reality.
I always enjoyed, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the band, Andrew, you might be because you're from California, LCD Sound System, either of you? They hung it up a while back, and they've since, of course, picked it back up, and I think they just put out a new album or something. But they decided after a few albums, hey, we're not going to do it anymore. We're done. And they had a bunch of adoring fans, and they put out a documentary of their last show, like the concert, whatever, live show, and they called it. I thought the title was so great. Shut Up and Play the Hits. Because they felt like that's all people want. They don't want to know how you feel. They just want you to play the music, and they want to pay their ticket, and they want to move on. And I think it's worth talking about for a second. Why do people feel that way? Maybe that's a valid way to feel. I don't know.
I think it is. I think that the average American wants to just listen to your music or listen to your talent. I mean, these people are talented.
Of course.
That's why they make millions of dollars doing what they do. They're very talented. But your talent allows me through the arts to escape reality. That's what the arts have always been great about, right? Mm-hmm. Allowing us to look at life away from the reality of sometimes the muck that's in front of us. And when you start to then take artistry and blend it with the muck, I don't want to look at your artistry anymore. And to that point of that band, just play the hits, man. Just let me escape for a little bit here. And I think there's something to that.
And I don't think that's a wrong way to feel, right? You're exactly right. Like the arts offer us an escape. They get us out of our own head, and they help us get to a place where it's different, that we can think clearly and rationally about things. I think that's all right. How do you guys feel about the idea of separating the art from the artist? How do you feel about that? Is that a valid thing? Is that doable, or is that?
It depends on who you are. So let's look at something like Maroon 5.
All right.
Well, I'm just saying. So we know that the main singer, Adam Levine.
Sure.
Or if I told you that's the main singer, you know who that is. Adam Levine, lead singer, Maroon 5. I imagine the bassist can go out and spout his political opinion, and sure, I can probably separate the two because I don't see him. I've only ever heard his music. So if he goes out and starts talking, sure, I could separate the two. But when your celebrityism is based on your branding, T Swift is a brand. She has backpacks. She has makeup. She has, albums and drinks and et cetera, et cetera. She is you are tied to that. You are your brand. No, I don't think you can separate that. But a painter probably could, or a playwright. Who,
all right. So it's conditional by the art form or the artist, I guess?
Yeah, because if your face is your brand, no, I don't think I can disassociate the two.
I think of somebody like, just to draw an immediate example, Kanye West, all right?
Yep.
Frankly, I think Yeezy's put out some good tracks, man. I think he's made some good stuff.
And some terrible clothes.
Very overpriced. He also said at one point that he's the reincarnation of Jesus Christ. So I don't know, man. Like, I like your music. I think you're insane, but, it is what it is. And I think that's an okay way to feel. But the fact is, not everybody feels that way. And when you're trying to advertise to mass markets, like, you're gonna upset some folks, I guess. So I don't know.
He has lunch with the president this week. I know that.
Does he really?
Yeah, I think tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I think, listen, I take all celebrities and then I take Kanye West and I kind of put him in his own little box
you
over
gotta,
here.
don't you? You gotta.
And just because of the way the wind blows with that dude, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. But, the more of your level-headed folks, though, that I like to say, and again, I know, for those of you that want to support, I can hear it already. People that are on the left are saying, well, you're just trying to go against Taylor Swift because you're a conservative. I'm like, no. If I've done nothing on this show, hopefully I've at least shared that, yes, while my political mindset might lean a little bit more right than left, I am in the middle. I am trying to be a middle ground person here, saying if she had come out and said the same thing about, maybe we should all vote Republican, I would have gone, just don't infuse politics into your artistry and do it in a way that makes me feel like you're doing such a great service to our country. It was such fanfare around it, right? I felt like I was called to do this, and it was just kind of anyway.
Yeah.
I know. All right. Well, listen, go ahead, Zach.
Oh, sorry. I was going to cite another example on the other side of the fence, if that's all right. To bring
please.
Bring it back around to Kanye West again. A couple weeks ago, Kanye was on SNL, and towards the end of the show, he had some things to say about the current political climate, and the show had wrapped, and they turned off the cameras, and he gave a whole spiel to the studio audience, and that became a whole thing, but Pete Davidson comes on next week on Last Week Tonight, and he talks about, he gave a little 3-minute thing on Kanye, and he basically said exactly what conservatives say about liberal artists when they come out, which is, we kind of don't care. Like, it shouldn't matter, and nobody wants to hear it. People feel this way on both sides of the aisle. The issue, the problem we run into is they're quick to look away when they agree.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly. That's a great point, and I saw both of those things, or at least the tapes of both of those things. Yeah. And I thought Pete Davis was right. We shouldn't care.
Right.
We shouldn't care. Just like we shouldn't care that the whole show that Kanye was on was about politics.
Yes.
Was that the Matt Damon Kavanaugh episode?
Was it that one?
I think it
Okay.
was. Maybe it wasn't, but it
I
was.
don't
But
know, yeah.
historically, I mean, it's quick how quickly we will change our mind so long as you're siding with where I land.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So, all right. I'm going to let this one go.
All right.
Blood pressure. You guys have settled me down a little bit.
All right.
So for those of you that were part of this one, thank you. For all the folks at Real News Communication, thank you for being part of this, Zach. Appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks.
Andrew, always appreciate your insights and your thoughts and your vests.
Thank you.
To my beautiful wife, Jenna, my wonderful daughters, Emerson and Arabella, Daddy loves you. Thank you for letting me do this. And while I may be considering a number of things, I do know where I land on this. In America, it's your right to endorse or not endorse candidates, but it seems that we've taken that to a whole new level, especially when it comes to celebrity endorsements. It's one thing when one of my neighbors has a Make America Great Again sign in their yard, or another is wearing a Feel the Burn t-shirt. But when celebrities start doing it, it does change the connotation. They have a much bigger microphone with which to address people, and that kind of thing can go sideways real quick. Listen, I run a business, and I've got to be careful about the things I say or do, even on this show, because it can affect my business. And celebrities should, maybe consider the same. I remember back in the early 2000s when the Dixie Chicks went across the pond and on foreign soil made it very clear that a statement about their dissatisfaction with then President George W. Bush, only to learn when they returned home in the days that followed that about 80% of the people that actually listened to their music happened to also be President Bush supporters. It was a career-ending move. Anybody seen a new CD from the Dixie Chicks come out lately? Yeah. This past week saw another award show, which are becoming less about awards and more about celebrities getting the opportunity to purvey their political opinions during an acceptance speech. Don't get me wrong, I'm fine with you having an opinion, but don't be surprised if when you voice that opinion, my opinion of you just went a new direction. I listen to music or watch movies to escape the noise of politics and dissension. The arts allow us to do that, but when all I can think about while listening to your greatest hits album is your political preference, you've stolen my ability to escape and launched me right back into reality. No thanks. I'll just change the dial. And in the end, have we really become so lazy as an electorate that we need to take our cues from a pop star? Are they really the ones who can empathize with the needs of most average Americans? Don't get me wrong, if a celebrity uses their platform to remind people that they should register to vote, that's great. But having a multimillionaire platinum recording artist tweeting at me from their penthouse suite or their private jet that they understand the struggles of the common man and women really seems a bit disingenuous. In a free society, anyone can talk about anything. I'm not telling old T Swift to stay in her lane, merely to understand that merging without using a blinker can lead to a collision. It's time that we all become more informed and do some fact-checking on our own and stop blindly trusting whatever news outlet we're plugged into or whichever celebrity tells us who we should vote for. Go to your local rallies or your town hall debates. See your candidates live and listen to their voices. You'll know when you've met a good one. I heard that in the day following Taylor Swift's tweet, voter registration in Tennessee actually increased quite a bit as compared to the days prior. But registering to vote isn't the same as actually voting. It's easy to click on a link on my computer or smartphone, but actually showing up on election day, well, that's a different story. If we're so lazy that we're going to make our decisions as to the best candidates based on the opinions of celebrities, then we're likely too lazy to actually show up to the ballot box on election day. And one final message to the celebrities on my playlist, DVR or fantasy football team. Please don't ruin my enjoyment of your artistry. Do us all a favor, and rather than talk, vote. In the end, your vote counts the same as mine. And actually, voting is what really matters. So if you feel the need to share your voice and or opinions on politics via Twitter or any other media outlet, instead, just hashtag shut up and vote. Finding myself somewhere in the middle, I'm Seth Denson.